They ordered my execution at dawn. The Alpha King himself signed the decree. But when the blade touched my throat, something inside me broke free. Something they should have feared long before they tried to kill me. My name is Kira, and for 3 years I scrubbed their floors, cooked their meals, and bled in silence to hide what I truly am. They called me wolfless, worthless, a traitor who deserved to die. But the second that silver blade began to fall, my eyes turned white as winter snow. And the Alpha King realized he had just made the worst mistake of his life. 'Cause I am not wolfless. I am something far more dangerous. I am the last of a species his ancestors tried to wipe from existence. A creature with the power to destroy his entire kingdom with a single thought. And now he has to choose between killing me or saving me. Because the moon just made me his fated mate. This is the story of how a kitchen servant became a queen. How an execution turned into a war. And how love became the only weapon strong enough to change the world. Stay until the end because the final battle will leave you in tears. This is the Alpha King ordered her execution. Then realized who he just killed. And nothing will ever be the same. The Alpha King ordered her execution. Then realized who he just killed. The silver blade pressed against Kira's throat, and she did not flinch. Blood dripped from her wrists where the iron chains had torn through her skin. The execution ground reeked of wet earth and death. Alpha King Ronan stood 10 feet away. His amber eyes burning with cold fury. "You were found with wolfsbane in the royal kitchens," he said. His voice like gravel scraping bone. "You will die a traitor's death." Kira lifted her chin, meeting his gaze with defiance that made the gathered wolves whisper among themselves. She was nothing, a kitchen servant with no rank, no family, no wolf. The worst crime in their world was being wolfless. And she had hidden it for 3 years. Now they knew. Now she would pay. "I am no traitor," Kira said, her voice steady despite the blade's kiss against her pulse. "But you will not believe me, so let us be done with this." Ronan's jaw tightened. Something flickered in his expression. Something that looked almost like hesitation. Then it vanished, buried beneath the weight of his crown and his duty. He raised one hand, and the executioner stepped forward. The blade lifted. Kira closed her eyes and felt the wind shift. It smelled of pine and coming snow and the copper tang of her own blood. She thought of her mother's face, blurred by time and grief. She thought of the secret that had kept her alive this long, the terrible gift she had never asked for. The blade began its descent. And Kira's eyes snapped open, glowing white as a winter moon. The executioner's scream tore through the clearing as his body flew backward, slamming into a tree with a crack of breaking ribs. The chains around Kira's wrists shattered into 1,000 fragments of shrieking metal. Power erupted from her skin in waves of light that made the wolves stagger back, their hands thrown up against the blinding glare. She rose into the air, her body suspended by invisible threads of energy that hummed and crackled like lightning before a storm. Her dark hair whipped around her face as if caught in a violent wind that touched nothing else. "What is this?" Ronan shouted, his voice nearly lost in the roar of power that filled the air. His wolf surged beneath his skin, desperate to emerge, but something in Kira's energy held it back, kept it caged and snarling in frustration. Kira turned to face him, and her eyes were no longer human. They were ancient and terrible and filled with a light that had nothing to do with the moon. "You wanted to know what I am," she said, and her voice echoed as if a dozen people spoke at once. "You wanted to punish me for being wolfless, for being weak." The ground beneath them began to shake. Cracks spread through the frozen earth like spider webs of destruction. Trees groaned and bent away from her as if repelled by an invisible force. I am not wolfless, King Ronan, Kira said, and the temperature dropped so fast that frost spread across every surface, climbing up the legs of the watching wolves, coating the execution platform in glittering ice. I am what your kind has feared for 1,000 years. Ronan's blood turned to ice water. Well, could not be. They were extinct, hunted down and destroyed centuries ago by his own ancestors. You are Luminae, he breathed, the word tasting of ash and terror. The Luminae had been the wolves' greatest enemy, beings of pure energy who could destroy an entire pack with a thought. They were the reason the Great War had nearly wiped out both species. They were the nightmare that wolf mothers used to frighten their pups into obedience. They were supposed to be gone. My mother hid me, Kira said, and pain cracked through her voice like breaking glass. She taught me to suppress it, to live as if I were nothing, to scrub your floors and cook your food and bow my head when your wolves passed. Her power flared brighter, and 3 more wolves were thrown backward, crashing into the crowd. She told me that if I could just survive, if I could just stay hidden, I might live long enough to escape. Ronan's mind raced. The wolfsbane in the kitchens. It had not been meant for him at all. You were trying to suppress your power, he said, understanding crashing over him like a freezing wave. Wolfsbane is poison to werewolves, but to Luminae. It dulls us, Kira finished. It makes us weak enough to pass for human, powerless enough to hide. She descended slowly until her bare feet touched the frozen ground. Someone discovered my supply and assumed I meant to poison the pack. Who? Ronan demanded, his alpha authority flooding his voice even though his instincts screamed at him to run, to get his pack away from this ancient threat. Kira's laugh was bitter and sharp. Does it matter now? You have already condemned me. You could destroy us all, Ronan said, forcing himself to stand firm even as his wolf howled in terror. Why have you not? The white light in Kira's eyes flickered, and for just a moment, Ronan saw past the power to the girl beneath. She was exhausted. She was terrified. She was alone. Because I am not a monster, Kira said quietly. Despite what your histories claim, despite what your people did to mine, I am not a monster. Her power began to fade, the light dimming like a dying star. But you have given me no choice. She swayed on her feet, and Ronan moved without thinking, crossing the space between them in 3 long strides. He caught her before she fell, and the moment his skin touched hers, he felt it. The mate bond. It slammed into him with the force of a physical blow, stealing the breath from his lungs. She was his. This creature of light and terror and barely contained power was his fated mate. And he had just ordered her execution. Kira's eyes widened as she felt it too, the bond snapping into place between them like a chain made of starlight and shadow. No, she whispered, horror and disbelief warring in her expression. This cannot be. You are mine, Ronan said, and his wolf surged forward in his chest, no longer afraid, now desperate and possessive and utterly certain. The moon has bound us. The moon. Kira's laugh was jagged with hysteria. Your moon goddess has a cruel sense of humor, binding a Luminae to the alpha king of the wolves. She tried to pull away, but her strength was gone, drained by the massive display of power. Ronan held her easily, his mind spinning through the implications. If the pack learned what she was, they would demand her death. If he refused, they would see him as weak, compromised by the mate bond. But if he gave her up, if he let them kill her, the bond would destroy him from the inside out. You will not die today, Ronan said, his voice dropping into a command that made every wolf in the clearing bow their heads in submission. No, Kira gasped. You do not understand what I am, what I could become. I understand that you are my mate, Ronan said. I understand that I nearly made the greatest mistake of my life. He turned to face his pack, holding Kira against his chest. She was trembling now, the last of her power flickering out like a candle in the wind. This woman is under my protection, he announced. Anyone who challenges this challenges me. The wolves stared in shocked silence. Beta Marcus stepped forward, his face twisted with confusion and fear. My king, she is Luminae, he said carefully. She is an abomination, a threat to every wolf here. She is my mate, Ronan said, and power rolled off him in waves that made the trees shake. And she will be your queen. The pack erupted into chaos. Kira's head fell against Ronan's shoulder, and she spoke so quietly that only he could hear. You have just started a war, she whispered. Your wolves will never accept me. Then they will learn, Ronan said. But as he looked into her eyes, still faintly glowing with a power that had nearly destroyed them all, he wondered if he had just saved his mate or doomed his entire pack. Either way, there was no turning back now. The Alpha King had made his choice. And the girl he had tried to execute held more power than all his wolves combined. The real question was whether she would use it to save them or destroy them. Ronan suspected he would spend the rest of his life finding out. The throne room fell silent as Ronan carried Kira through the massive oak doors. Her body hung limp in his arms, drained of the terrible power that had moments ago threatened to tear his pack apart. The wolves who lined the corridor pressed themselves against the walls, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. They could smell what she was now, the scent of lightning and ozone, of something older than the moon itself. Ronan's Beta Marcus followed close behind, his hand resting on the hilt of his silver blade. My king, you cannot possibly mean to go through with this, Marcus said, his voice low and urgent. The council will never allow a Luminae to sit beside you. The council does not choose my mate, Ronan said without looking back. The moon does. The moon has made a mistake. Ronan stopped walking and turned slowly to face his oldest friend. His eyes had shifted to full wolf gold, and the air around him shimmered with barely contained fury. Say that again, he said softly. Marcus paled but held his ground. Ronan, think about what you are doing, he pleaded, dropping the formal title in desperation. She is the enemy of our kind, the very creature our ancestors died to eliminate. Our ancestors were wrong. The words hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Marcus stared at him in shock. You cannot mean that. Look at her, Ronan commanded, adjusting his hold on Kira so Marcus could see her face. She was unconscious now, her dark lashes resting against pale cheeks that still bore the bruises from her imprisonment. Does she look like the monster from our stories? Does she look like someone who wanted to destroy us? She could kill us all with a thought, Marcus said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. And yet she did not, Ronan said. Even when we were about to execute her for a crime she did not commit, she held back. He began walking again, his long strides eating up the distance to his private chambers. That shows more restraint than most wolves I know. Marcus said nothing, but Ronan could feel his disapproval like a physical weight. They reached the Alpha's suite, and Ronan kicked the door open with more force than necessary. The room was massive, dominated by a bed large enough for a shifted wolf. He laid Kira down gently on the dark furs, and she stirred, a small sound of pain escaping her lips. Her wrists were still bleeding where the iron chains had cut deep. Ronan's wolf snarled at the sight of her injuries, the mate bond screaming at him to protect, to heal, to destroy whoever had dared harm what was his. Get the healer, he ordered Marcus. The healer will not come, Marcus said quietly. The pack is terrified, Ronan. Then I will get her myself. Ronan turned toward the door, but Kira's hand shot out and caught his wrist. Her grip was weak, trembling, but it stopped him cold. No, she whispered, her eyes fluttering open. They were gray now, human, exhausted. Do not make them tend to me. You are injured. I will heal, Kira said, struggling to sit up. Ronan pressed her back down with gentle but firm hands. You are barely conscious. I have survived worse, she said, and the emptiness in her voice made something crack inside his chest. He sat on the edge of the bed, his massive frame making the furniture creak. Up close, he could see the scars that covered her arms, thin white lines that spoke of years of hiding, of cutting herself to let the power bleed out before it consumed her. How long? He asked. How long have you been here, hiding among us? 3 years, Kira said. 3 years of scrubbing floors and biting my tongue and pretending I was nothing. She laughed, and it was a broken sound. I was good at it too, until someone found my wolfsbane supply. Who? Ronan demanded. Who discovered it? Kira's eyes met his, and he saw fear there. Real genuine terror. I do not know, she said. But whoever it was did not simply report me. What do you mean? The wolfsbane was hidden in a loose stone beneath my bed, Kira explained. No one should have found it unless they were searching specifically for something to use against me. Ronan's mind sharpened, his strategic instincts cutting through the fog of the mate bond. You think someone planted evidence? I think someone wanted me discovered, Kira corrected. But I do not know if they knew what I truly am, or if they simply thought I was trying to poison the pack. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marcus entered without waiting for permission, his face grim. The council has called an emergency session, he said. They demand your presence within the hour. Let them demand, Ronan said. You are the Alpha King, Marcus said, his voice sharp with frustration. You cannot simply ignore the council. Watch me. Ronan, they will see this as proof that the mate bond has compromised your judgment, Marcus said. They will use it against you. Kira pushed herself up despite Ronan's protests, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. He is right, she said quietly. You must go. I will not leave you unprotected. I have spent 3 years protecting myself, Kira said with a bitter smile. I think I can manage a few hours alone. Ronan stood, torn between his duty to his pack and the overwhelming need to stay with his mate. The bond pulled at him like a rope around his chest, tightening with every second he considered leaving her. Marcus will stay, he decided. What? Both Marcus and Kira spoke at once. He is my beta and my most trusted warrior, Ronan said. If anyone tries to harm you while I am gone, he will stop them. Marcus's jaw clenched, but he gave a curt nod. Loyalty to his alpha warred with his fear of what Kira represented, and loyalty won as it always did. Do not make me regret this, he said to Kira. She met his gaze steadily. I could say the same to you. Ronan left with one final look at his mate, memorizing the sight of her sitting on his bed, bloody and exhausted and utterly defiant. She was magnificent, and she was going to get him killed. The council chamber was a circular room of ancient stone, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. 12 wolves sat in high-backed chairs arranged in a semicircle, their faces ranging from concerned to openly hostile. Ronan entered and felt the weight of their judgment like a physical force. Elder Morrigan spoke first, her silver hair gleaming in the firelight. Alpha King, we have grave concerns about the events of this afternoon. I am certain you do, Ronan said, taking his place at the center of the circle. He did not sit. Standing made him harder to attack, and he was under no illusions about the danger he faced here. "You have claimed a Luminae as your mate," Elder Thorn said. His scarred face twisted with disgust. "A creature whose very existence violates the Treaty of Blood Moon." "The treaty was signed 300 years ago," Ronan said calmly. "And it specifically deals with acts of war between our species." "The Luminae are our enemies," Morrigan said. "They always have been." "She is one girl," Ronan said. "Not an army. One girl who could destroy this entire pack without breaking a sweat," Thorn countered. "You saw what she did to Garrett." The executioner was still unconscious. His ribs shattered from the force of Kira's power throwing him into the tree. "Garrett was about to kill her," Ronan said, his voice dropping into a growl. "She defended herself. She is an abomination." "She is my mate," Ronan roared, and the torches flickered as his power filled the room. "And I will hear no more challenges to that fact." Silence fell, heavy and oppressive. Then Elder Kasha, the youngest member of the council, spoke softly. "My king, we understand the mate bond is sacred," she said. "But you must also understand our fear." "I do understand," Ronan said, forcing himself to calm. "I know our history, I know what the Luminae did during the Great War." "Then you know why we cannot allow this," Morrigan said. "I know that 3 centuries ago our 2 species nearly destroyed each other," Ronan said. "I know that thousands died on both sides." He looked around the circle, meeting each elder's eyes in turn. "I also know that we are not our ancestors, and she is not responsible for their sins." "Pretty words," Thorn spat. "But words will not protect us when she decides to finish what her people started." "She has had 3 years to destroy us," Ronan said. 3 years living among us, undetected. 3 years planning, Morrigan suggested. 3 years surviving, Ronan corrected. She was using wolfsbane to suppress her power, to make herself weak enough to hide. "Or she was stockpiling poison to use against us," Thorn said. Ronan's patience snapped. "If she wanted us dead, we would be dead," he said flatly. "You saw what she can do, and that was her weakened and half-starved from days in the dungeons. All the more reason to eliminate the threat now, while she is vulnerable," Thorn said. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "If anyone touches her, I will personally tear them apart," Ronan said, and every word dripped with the promise of violence. "Alpha King, you cannot threaten the council," Morrigan said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. "I am not threatening," Ronan said. "I am stating a fact. The mate bond has clouded your judgment," Thorn declared, standing from his chair. "You are unfit to lead while under its influence." Several other council members shifted uncomfortably. This was the challenge Ronan had been expecting, the move that would force him to choose between his crown and his mate. "You dare question my fitness to lead," Ronan said quietly. Thorn lifted his chin. "I invoke the right of challenge," he said. "The pack deserves an alpha who puts their safety above his own desires." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The right of challenge was ancient law, allowing any wolf to contest the alpha's position through ritual combat. It had not been invoked in over a century. Ronan smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "I accept," he said. Thorn paled slightly, as if he had not truly expected Ronan to agree. "The challenge will take place at dawn," Morrigan said quickly, before either male could change their mind. "The pack will bear witness." Ronan nodded once and turned to leave. "Alpha King," Kasha called out. "A word if you would permit it." He paused, and she rose from her seat, approaching him carefully. The other elders watched with varying degrees of suspicion. "What you are doing is dangerous," Kasha said quietly, too low for the others to hear. "I know. Do you?" she asked. "Because I think you see only your mate, not the political catastrophe this has become." Ronan's jaw tightened. "What would you have me do? Reject the moon's gift?" "I would have you be careful," Kasha said. "Thorn is not your only enemy in this." "Who else?" Kasha glanced back at the council, then leaned closer. "Someone arranged for that wolfsbane to be discovered," she whispered. "Someone who knew exactly what it would lead to." Ronan's blood ran cold. "You think this was orchestrated?" "I think someone wanted that girl exposed," Kasha said. "And I think they are not finished." She stepped back before anyone could question their conversation. Ronan left the council chamber with his mind racing. If Kasha was right, if someone had deliberately exposed Kira, then the question was why. Did they know what she truly was, or had they simply wanted to remove a perceived threat to the pack? Either way, Kira was in more danger than he had realized. He ran through the corridors, his wolf pushing him faster, the mate Bond screaming that something was wrong. He burst into his chambers and stopped cold. Marcus stood with his blade drawn, his body positioned between Kira and 3 wolves Ronan recognized as Thorn's personal guards. Kira was on her feet, her back pressed against the far wall, and her eyes were beginning to glow with that terrible white light. "Step away from her," Ronan commanded, his voice shaking the windows. The guards turned, and one of them, a massive brute named Silas, sneered. "Elder Thorn sent us to secure the prisoner," he said. "She is not a prisoner," Ronan said. "She is my mate and your future queen." "She is a monster that needs to be put down," Silas said, taking a step toward Kira. That was his last mistake. Ronan moved faster than human eyes could follow, crossing the room in a blur of motion. He caught Silas by the throat and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack the stone. "Touch her and die," he said simply. The other 2 guards backed away, their hands raised in surrender. Marcus lowered his blade slightly but did not sheath it. "They came with council orders," he said. "Thorn has no authority to issue orders in my name," Ronan said, his grip tightening on Silas's throat until the wolf's eyes bulged. "My king, please," one of the other guards stammered. "We were only following commands." Ronan looked at Kira. She had not moved, but the light in her eyes was growing stronger, her power responding to the threat. "Stand down," he said gently. "They are leaving." "Are they?" Kira asked, and her voice held that strange echo again, as if multiple beings spoke through her mouth. "Because it seems to me they came here to kill me." "They will not touch you," Ronan promised. He released Silas, who dropped to the floor gasping for air. "Get out," Ronan ordered. "And tell Thorn that if he sends anyone else, I will consider it an act of war." The guards fled, dragging Silas with them. Marcus closed the door behind them and turned to face Ronan. "This is spiraling out of control," he said. "I know. Thorn has challenged you," Marcus said. "I assume that is why they tried this, hoping to eliminate her before the combat could take place." "It will not matter," Ronan said. "I will defeat Thorn, and the pack will accept Kira." "And if you do not?" Kira asked quietly. The light had faded from her eyes, but she looked even more exhausted than before. "If you fall tomorrow, what happens to me?" Ronan crossed to her and cupped her face in his hands. "I will not fall," he said. "You do not know that," Kira said, and her voice broke. "You are fighting one of your own council members because of me." "I am fighting for you," Ronan corrected. "There is a difference." Kira closed her eyes and tears slipped down her cheeks. I should run, she whispered. I should leave tonight before anyone else gets hurt. You are not running, Ronan said firmly. You are staying right here where I can protect you. I do not need your protection. Perhaps not, Ronan agreed. But I need you. The mate bond pulsed between them, warm and insistent and utterly undeniable. Kira opened her eyes and looked at him with such longing and fear that it made his chest ache. I do not know how to be what you need, she said. I do not know how to be a queen or a mate, or anything other than what I am. Then be what you are, Ronan said. Be yourself and let me handle the rest. They will never accept me. They will learn. Kira laughed bitterly. You have too much faith in your people. I have faith in us, Ronan said. He leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers, breathing in her scent of lightning and wildflowers. We are stronger together than apart. Pretty words, Kira echoed Thorn's earlier dismissal. True words, Ronan insisted. Marcus cleared his throat awkwardly. I will post guards outside, he said. Wolves I trust, ones who will not follow Thorn's orders. Thank you, Ronan said without looking away from Kira. Marcus left, and they were finally alone. Kira pulled back from Ronan's touch and wrapped her arms around herself. What happens tomorrow? She asked. I fight Thorn, I win, and we move forward. And if you lose? I will not lose. Ronan, please, Kira said, and the desperation in her voice made him pause. I need to know what happens to me if you die. He was quiet for a long moment. If I fall, Marcus becomes Alpha, he finally said. And he will uphold my wishes regarding you. Will he? Kira asked skeptically. He can barely stand to look at me. He is loyal to me above all else, Ronan said. If I command him to protect you, he will do so even at the cost of his own life. Kira sank down onto the bed, her strength finally giving out completely. This is madness, she said. Yesterday I was a kitchen servant trying to survive one more day. Today you are my mate and the future queen of the Northern Pack, Ronan said. Tomorrow the world will know what you are, and it will change everything. I do not want to change anything, Kira said. I just wanted to be left alone. Ronan sat beside her and pulled her into his arms. She resisted for only a moment before melting against his chest, her body shaking with exhaustion and fear. I am sorry, he said quietly, for ordering your execution, for not seeing you sooner, for everything my people have put you through. You were doing what you thought was right, Kira said. That does not make it hurt less. They sat in silence as the moon rose outside the window, painting the room in silver light. Kira's breathing eventually evened out, and Ronan realized she had fallen asleep in his arms. He laid her back on the bed and covered her with furs, tucking them around her small frame. She looked so fragile like this, so human. It was hard to believe she held the power to destroy his entire kingdom. A soft knock came at the door, and Marcus entered quietly. The guards are posted, he said. 6 of my most trusted warriors. Good. Marcus hesitated, then spoke carefully. Ronan, I need to ask you something. Ask. Are you certain she is worth this? Marcus said. Worth risking everything we have built, everything our fathers and grandfathers died to protect? Ronan looked at Kira's sleeping form, at the way the moonlight caught in her dark hair. Yes, he said simply. She could destroy us all. She could, Ronan agreed. But she will not. How can you be so sure? Because I know her, Ronan said. The bond lets me feel what she feels, and Marcus, she is terrified. Of us. Of herself. Ronan said quietly. Of what she might become if she stops fighting to control her power. He turned to face his beta. She is not our enemy. She is a survivor who has been alone and afraid for longer than I can imagine. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I hope you are right, he finally said. Because if you are wrong, we are all dead. I am not wrong. Marcus nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it is worth, I have never seen you fight for anything the way you are fighting for her, he said. Maybe that means something. He left, and Ronan stood alone in the darkness, watching his mate sleep and wondering if he had just made the best decision of his life or signed all their death warrants. Outside, in the shadows beyond the guard's watchful eyes, a figure moved through the darkness. They had failed tonight, but there would be other opportunities. The Luminae girl had to die before she became too powerful to stop. Before she remembered what she truly was. Before she destroyed them all. The figure disappeared into the night, already planning their next move. Dawn would bring the challenge and with it chaos. And in chaos anything could happen. Dawn came too quickly. Ronan had not slept, standing vigil over Kira as she fought nightmares he could feel through the bond. Twice she had cried out in her sleep, her power flickering like a candle in a storm. Both times he had soothed her with gentle touches and whispered words until she settled again. Now the first rays of sunlight crept through the window, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. Kira stirred, her eyes opening slowly. For a moment she looked confused, as if she had forgotten where she was. Then memory returned, and he watched the weight of it settle over her like a shroud. You did not sleep, she said, her voice rough from disuse. I could not, Ronan admitted. The bond kept me awake, made me feel every time you were in distress. Kira sat up, pushing the furs aside. Her wrists had healed during the night, the deep cuts now pale pink scars that would fade completely in another day or two. Luminae healing was faster than wolves. Another reminder of how different she truly was. The challenge is today, she said. It was not a question. At noon in the main arena, Ronan confirmed. The entire pack will witness it. Kira stood and walked to the window, looking out over the packlands. From this height, she could see wolves moving through the compound, preparing for the day's events. They hate me, she said quietly. They fear you, Ronan corrected, coming to stand behind her. It is not the same thing. Fear turns to hate quickly enough. She was right and they both knew it. Ronan placed his hands on her shoulders, feeling the tension coiled in her muscles. I will defeat Thorn, he said. And then we will show them that you are not the enemy. How? Kira asked, turning to face him. How do you convince an entire species that everything they have been taught about mine is wrong? One day at a time, Ronan said. One choice at a time. A sharp knock interrupted them, and Marcus entered carrying a tray of food. You need to eat before the challenge, he said to Ronan. And you, he added, looking at Kira with something that might have been concern. You look like you have not had a proper meal in weeks. Prisoners are not well fed, Kira said dryly. Marcus set the tray down on the table and stepped back. I took the liberty of bringing enough for two, he said. The kitchen staff refused to prepare food for her, so I made it myself. Ronan felt a surge of gratitude toward his beta. Thank you, old friend. Marcus shrugged uncomfortably. I still think this is madness, he said. But you are my king and she is your mate. That is more than I expected, Kira said softly. Marcus looked at her fully for the first time, really looked, and Ronan saw his expression shift slightly. You are very young, Marcus said, and there was surprise in his voice. How old are you? 22 years, Kira said. I was 19 when my mother died and I came here to hide. You have been alone for 3 years, Marcus said slowly. Completely alone with no pack, no family, nothing. Yes. Marcus glanced at Ronan, and some silent communication passed between them. That must have been difficult, Marcus said finally. It was a small concession, barely an acknowledgement, but it was more than Ronan had hoped for. Kira seemed to sense it too, because she gave Marcus a tentative smile. It was survivable, she said. That is all I needed it to be. They ate in uncomfortable silence, Kira picking at the food despite her obvious hunger. Ronan watched her carefully, noting the way her hands trembled slightly whenever she reached for her cup. She was still weak from yesterday's massive expenditure of power. You should rest more before the challenge, he said. I will be fine, Kira said. I am not the one who has to fight. No, but you will be there, surrounded by wolves who want you dead, Ronan said bluntly. Your safety concerns me more than Thorn. I can protect myself. I know you can, Ronan said. But I would prefer you did not have to. Marcus cleared his throat. The arena will be heavily guarded, he said. I have assigned wolves loyal to you, Ronan, to create a perimeter. Thorn's supporters will not like that, Ronan said. Thorn's supporters can lodge a formal complaint after you break his spine, Marcus said with grim satisfaction. Despite everything, Kira laughed. It was a small sound, quickly stifled, but it made both males turn to stare at her. I am sorry, she said, covering her mouth. I should not find violence amusing. Thorn deserves worse than a broken spine, Marcus said. He has been positioning himself to challenge Ronan for years. Why now? Kira asked. Why did he wait until this moment? It was a good question, one Ronan had been asking himself. Because he finally has an excuse the pack will accept, Marcus said. Claiming that the mate bond has compromised the Alpha's judgment is a powerful argument. So I am just convenient timing, Kira said. You are the catalyst, Ronan corrected. But the conflict was always coming. A commotion outside made all three of them tense. Ronan moved to the window and looked down to see a crowd gathering in the courtyard. At the center stood Elder Morrigan and 2 other council members. They are calling for you, Marcus said, coming to stand beside him. Let them wait, Ronan said. But even as he spoke, Morrigan's voice rang out, magically amplified to carry across the entire compound. Alpha King Ronan, the council demands the prisoner be brought before us for questioning before the challenge commences. Kira went very still. They want to interrogate me, she said. They have no authority to demand that, Ronan growled. They are the council, Marcus said quietly. Refusing them outright will only add fuel to Thorn's arguments. Ronan's hands clenched into fists. Marcus was right and he hated it. I will not let them harm you, he said to Kira. I know, she said, but her voice was hollow. They descended to the courtyard together, flanked by Marcus and 6 guards who looked ready to kill anything that moved wrong. The crowd parted as they approached, wolves pressing back against walls and buildings to avoid getting too close to Kira. She walked with her head high, her spine straight, but Ronan could feel her terror through the bond. Morrigan stood waiting, her silver hair braided in an intricate pattern that marked her as the council's voice. Beside her were Elder Kasha and a wolf Ronan did not recognize, a thin male with calculating eyes. Alpha King, Morrigan said formally. Thank you for bringing the prisoner. She is not a prisoner, Ronan said for what felt like the 100th time. She is my mate. That remains to be seen, the unfamiliar wolf said. His voice was cold, clipped, with an accent that spoke of the Eastern Territories. Who are you? Ronan demanded. "This is Counselor Aldrich," Morrigan said. "He has come from the High Council to observe the situation." Ronan's blood turned to ice. The High Council was the governing body that oversaw all wolf packs across the continent. They rarely intervened in individual pack matters unless something threatened the entire species. "The High Council has no jurisdiction here," Ronan said carefully. "We have jurisdiction everywhere," Aldrich said smoothly. "And the discovery of a living Luminae is very much our concern." He turned his cold gaze to Kira, studying her like a specimen under glass. "So you are the creature that has caused such upheaval," he said. "You are smaller than I expected." Kira said nothing, but Ronan felt her power stir beneath her skin, responding to the threat. "Careful," he murmured, too low for anyone else to hear. "Do not give them a reason." "The High Council has questions," Aldrich continued, "and you will answer them truthfully, or face immediate execution." "She is under my protection," Ronan said, his voice dropping into a growl that made several wolves step back. "The High Council supersedes your protection, Alpha King," Aldrich said. "This is pack law, written in the Treaty of Blood Moon." Ronan wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but Marcus's hand on his arm stopped him. "Let them ask their questions," Marcus whispered. "Fighting this will only make things worse." Ronan looked at Kira, and she gave him a small nod. "I will answer," she said quietly. Aldrich smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "How many Luminae remain in the world?" he asked. "I do not know," Kira said. "Lies already," Aldrich said. "Your kind are telepathic, are they not? You can sense each other across great distances." "We could," Kira said. "But I have felt no other Luminae since my mother died." "How convenient." "It is the truth," Kira said, and for the first time, anger crept into her voice. "My people are gone, slaughtered by yours in a war neither side truly won." "A war your kind started," Aldrich shot back. "A war that began when wolves hunted us for sport," Kira countered. The crowd murmured, uncomfortable with this version of history. Aldrich's eyes narrowed. "You claim to be the last of your kind, yet you possess the power to destroy an entire pack," he said. "That makes you a weapon, girl." "I am not a weapon." "Then what are you?" Kira was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "I am a survivor," she said. "I am someone who has spent every day of her life trying not to become the monster you all expect." "Noble words," Aldrich said. "But words do not change what you are." "And what am I?" Kira asked, taking a step forward. Ronan tensed, ready to intervene, but she held up a hand to stop him. "Tell me, Counselor, what exactly do you think I am?" "You are an abomination," Aldrich said flatly. "A creature that should have been wiped out centuries ago." "Because we are different," Kira said. "Because we possess power that frightens you. Because you are dangerous." "So are wolves," Kira said. "You can tear a human apart with your bare hands. You hunt in packs, you mark territory with violence." She looked around at the assembled wolves. "But I do not call you monsters for it, because I understand that power itself is not evil." "This is philosophy, not answers," Aldrich said dismissively. "Then ask me a real question," Kira challenged. "Very well," Aldrich said. "If you are truly peaceful, if you truly mean us no harm, then prove it." "How?" Aldrich's smile widened. "Renounce your power," he said. "There are rituals, old magic that can strip a Luminae of their abilities. Submit to the ritual, become truly powerless, and we will allow you to live." The courtyard erupted in shocked whispers. Ronan took a step forward, his wolf surging to the surface. "Absolutely not," he snarled. She is my mate, she will not be mutilated to appease your fears. It is not mutilation, it is protection, Aldrich said. For everyone involved. It is barbaric, Marcus said, surprising everyone by speaking up. Even I can see that. Aldrich looked at Marcus with disdain. The beta speaks out of turn. The beta speaks the truth, Marcus said firmly. You are asking her to destroy part of herself to make you comfortable. I am asking her to make a sacrifice for the greater good, Aldrich corrected. He turned back to Kira. What say you, girl? Will you submit to the ritual and prove your peaceful intentions? Kira looked at Ronan, and he could see the conflict in her eyes. She was actually considering it. No, he said through the bond, pushing the word directly into her mind. She flinched slightly at the intrusion but did not look away. If I refuse, she asked Aldrich. Then the High Council will declare you a threat to all wolf kind, Aldrich said. And every pack on the continent will be ordered to kill you on sight. That is not your decision to make alone, Kasha interjected. The full High Council must vote on such a declaration. They already have, Aldrich said, pulling a sealed scroll from his coat. I carry their decree. He broke the seal and unrolled the parchment, reading aloud. By order of the High Council, the Luminae known as Kira is hereby declared a Category 5 threat unless she submits to power nullification within 7 days. Failure to comply will result in immediate execution and a bounty of 10,000 gold pieces for her confirmed death. The courtyard went deathly silent. 10,000 gold pieces was enough to tempt even the most loyal wolf. Ronan felt rage unlike anything he had ever experienced. You come into my territory, threaten my mate, and expect me to simply accept this, he said, his voice deadly quiet. I expect you to see reason, Aldrich said. The High Council has spoken, Alpha King. You will uphold pack law or be branded a traitor yourself. Then I am a traitor, Ronan said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Marcus grabbed his arm. Ronan, think about what you are saying, he hissed. I have thought about nothing else, Ronan said. He looked at his pack, at the wolves who had followed him for 5 years, who had trusted him to lead them through war and famine and political strife. I will not surrender my mate to be mutilated, he said clearly. I will not allow fear to dictate how we treat those who are different from us. Even if it means war with the High Council. Morrigan asked, and there was genuine concern in her voice now. Even then, Aldrich laughed, a sharp bark of sound. You are a fool, Alpha King, he said. You would throw away everything for one girl. Not just any girl, Ronan said. My mate, my equal, my future. He pulled Kira to his side, wrapping an arm around her waist. And I will die before I let you touch her. Aldrich's expression hardened. So be it, he said. You have chosen your path, Ronan Blackthorn. Do not blame me for where it leads. He turned and strode from the courtyard, leaving a wake of shocked silence behind him. Morrigan looked at Ronan with something like pity. You have just declared war on the High Council, she said softly. They will send armies. Let them come, Ronan said. We will be ready. Will we? Kasha asked. The northern pack is strong, but we cannot stand against every pack on the continent. Then we will find allies, Ronan said. There are other packs who chafe under the High Council's rule. Rebellion, Morrigan breathed. You are talking about open rebellion. I am talking about freedom, Ronan corrected. Freedom to choose our own mates, to make our own laws, to live without fear of arbitrary decrees from wolves who have never set foot in our territory. He looked around at his pack, meeting their eyes one by one. I know I am asking much, he said. I know this will be hard and dangerous, and some of you may not survive what is coming. But I also know that surrendering Kira to appease the High Council's fears is wrong. And I will not do it, even if I must stand alone. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Marcus stepped forward. You will not stand alone, he said. His voice was rough, reluctant, but sincere. I do not understand the mate bond, I do not fully trust her, but I trust you. And if you say this is the right path, then I will follow. One by one, other wolves stepped forward. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. Ronan felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he had not realized he was carrying. Kira stood frozen beside him, tears streaming down her face. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? Because you are worth it, Ronan said simply. Because love is worth fighting for, even when the odds are impossible. A throat cleared, and they turned to see Thorn standing at the edge of the crowd. How touching, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The Alpha King chooses treason and pretty speeches over the safety of his pack. The challenge stands, Ronan said. You wanted to prove I am unfit to lead. Then face me in the arena and try. Thorn smiled. Oh, I intend to, he said. But I wonder, will you be so confident when you are bleeding out in the sand? We will find out soon enough, Ronan said. Thorn's smile widened. Indeed we will. He turned and walked away, his supporters following in his wake. Ronan counted them, noting who stood with Thorn and who remained neutral. The pack was fracturing, dividing along lines of loyalty and fear. This is going to get worse before it gets better, Marcus said quietly. I know, Ronan said. Kira pulled away from him suddenly, wrapping her arms around herself. I should leave, she said. I should run far from here and never look back. You are not running, Ronan said firmly. People are going to die because of me, Kira said, her voice breaking. Your pack is tearing itself apart because I exist. The pack is tearing itself apart because we have allowed fear to rule us for too long, Ronan corrected. You are not the problem, Kira. You are the solution. How can you say that? She demanded. How can you be so certain? Because the mate bond does not lie, Ronan said. The moon chose you for me, chose us for each other, and I have to believe that means something. Kira looked at him with such desperate hope that it made his heart ache. What if you are wrong? She asked. What if the moon made a mistake? Then we will face it together, Ronan said. He pulled her back into his arms, holding her tight as she trembled against him. The crowd slowly dispersed, wolves returning to their duties with worried glances and hushed conversations. Marcus organized the guards, doubling the protection around Ronan's chambers. Kasha approached them cautiously. Alpha King, a word? She asked. Ronan nodded, and she leaned close. Aldrich's arrival was not coincidence, she said quietly. Someone contacted the High Council and told them about Kira. Who? Ronan demanded. I do not know, Kasha said. But the message was sent 2 days ago, before Kira was even discovered with the wolfsbane. Ronan's mind raced. Someone knew what she was before the execution, he said slowly. Someone has been watching her, planning this. It appears so, Kasha said. And whoever it is, they have connections to the High Council. She glanced at Kira, then back to Ronan. Be careful, my king, she said. This conspiracy runs deeper than a simple power play. She left, and Ronan stood in the courtyard as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Noon was approaching. Soon he would face Thorn in combat, and the fate of his pack would be decided by tooth and claw. But first, he had to make sure Kira was truly safe. Because if he fell, if Thorn won, she would have no one to protect her from the wolves who wanted her dead. And that was unacceptable. "Come," he said, guiding her back toward his chambers. "We need to prepare." "For the challenge?" Kira asked. "For everything," Ronan said grimly. "Because this is just the beginning." High above them, watching from a tower window, a figure smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Alpha King had chosen the girl over his pack, just as predicted. The High Council was now involved, bringing the weight of centuries of law down on Ronan's head. And soon, very soon, the Northern Pack would tear itself apart. All because of one scared girl who had no idea what she truly was. Or what she was about to become. The figure turned from the window and began preparing for the next phase. The challenge was merely a distraction. The real game was about to begin. The arena was a circle of ancient stone, carved by wolves long dead and stained with the blood of 1,000 challenges. Ronan stood at its center, stripped to the waist. His body a map of scars earned through years of combat. The noon sun beat down mercilessly, turning the sand beneath his feet into scorching powder. Across from him, Thorn stretched and rolled his shoulders, a predatory grin splitting his face. "Last chance to surrender, boy king," Thorn called out. "Give up the abomination and I will let you live." "Never," Ronan said simply. The crowd that surrounded the arena was the largest gathering Ronan had ever seen. Every wolf in the Northern Pack had come to witness this moment, along with visitors from neighboring territories who had heard rumors of the challenge. And there, in a section guarded by Marcus and 20 loyal wolves, sat Kira. She wore simple clothes, her dark hair pulled back from her face, and even from this distance Ronan could feel her terror through the bond. He sent her a pulse of reassurance, of love, of absolute certainty. She would be safe. He would make sure of it. Elder Morrigan stood at the edge of the arena, her voice magically amplified to reach every ear. "This challenge has been issued under the ancient rites," she declared. "Thorn of the Northern Pack claims that Alpha King Ronan is unfit to lead due to compromise by the mate bond. The challenge will be decided by combat to submission or death. Do both parties accept these terms?" "I accept," Ronan said. "I accept," Thorn echoed. Morrigan raised her hand. "Then let the challenge begin." She brought her hand down, and Thorn immediately shifted. Bones cracked and reformed as he dropped to all fours, his body expanding into a massive gray wolf with silver streaks along his spine. He was huge, easily 300 pounds of muscle and fury. Ronan did not shift. Not yet. He wanted Thorn to think he had the advantage. Thorn lunged forward with a snarl, covering the distance between them in seconds. Ronan sidestepped at the last possible moment, his human agility allowing him to move faster than Thorn expected. He brought his fist down hard on Thorn's spine as the wolf passed, earning a yelp of pain. Thorn spun and snapped at Ronan's leg, his teeth closing on empty air as Ronan danced backward. The crowd roared, some cheering for their king, others calling for his blood. Kira sat frozen, her hands clenched so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. She could feel Ronan through the bond, feel his focus and determination and the cold calculation of a warrior who had fought hundreds of battles. But she could also feel his exhaustion. He had not slept in 2 days, had not eaten since this morning, and the stress of the past 48 hours had taken its toll. Thorn was fresh, rested, and fighting with the desperation of a wolf who knew this was his only chance at the throne. Ronan shifted finally, his body exploding into his wolf form. He was black as midnight, larger than Thorn by at least 50 pounds, with eyes that burned gold like molten metal. The two wolves circled each other, growling low and deep. Then they collided in a blur of teeth and claws. Blood sprayed across the sand. Fur flew in clumps. The sound of their combat was terrible, all snarls and snapping bones and flesh tearing. Ronan got his jaws around Thorn's throat and bit down hard, but Thorn twisted with desperate strength and raked his claws across Ronan's ribs. They broke apart, both bleeding, both panting. Thorn's left ear was torn half off. Ronan's side was laid open in 4 parallel gashes. They crashed together again, and this time Thorn managed to get beneath Ronan, flipping him onto his back. It was a vulnerable position, and Thorn took full advantage. His teeth sank into Ronan's shoulder, digging deep, searching for the major artery. Ronan howled in pain and rage, thrashing to get free. Kira shot to her feet, her power surging in response to Ronan's distress. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Do not interfere," he said urgently. "If you help him, the challenge is forfeit and Thorn wins by default." "He is dying," Kira said, her voice shaking. "He is fighting," Marcus corrected. "Let him fight." In the arena, Ronan finally managed to throw Thorn off. He staggered to his feet, favoring his injured leg, blood pouring from the wound in his shoulder. Thorn looked worse, his breathing labored from cracked ribs, but his eyes gleamed with vicious satisfaction. "You are weak," Thorn said, the words garbled through his wolf mouth but still understandable. "Weak and compromised, just as I claimed." Ronan said nothing, conserving his strength. They charged again, and this time when they collided, something went wrong. Ronan's injured leg gave out at the crucial moment. He stumbled, and Thorn was there, his jaws closing around Ronan's throat. Not to kill, not yet, but to force submission. Ronan struggled, but he was too weak, too injured, and Thorn's grip was iron. "Submit," Thorn growled. "Submit, and I will let you live in exile." Through the bond, Kira felt Ronan's options narrowing. He could shift back to human, use his hands to pry Thorn off, but that would leave him even more vulnerable. He could continue fighting and risk death. Or he could submit and lose everything. Kira felt the moment Ronan made his choice. He would rather die than give up, rather bleed out in this arena than live without her. "No," Kira whispered. Then louder, "No." Her power exploded outward in a wave that knocked everyone in the first 3 rows backward. Marcus tried to hold her, but she shook him off like he weighed nothing. "I said a no," Kira screamed, and her voice echoed with that terrible harmonics that marked her as something other than human or wolf. She vaulted over the arena wall, landing lightly in the sand. Her eyes blazed white, so bright that wolves covered their faces and turned away. "The challenge is forfeit," Thorn said, releasing Ronan and backing away. "She has interfered, which means I win." "You win nothing," Kira said. Energy crackled around her like lightning, making the sand beneath her feet turn to glass. "You want to kill me so badly. You fear what I am, what I could become." She spread her arms wide. "Then here I am." "Stop this," Ronan said weakly, shifting back to human. He was covered in blood, barely able to stand. "Let the challenge finish." "No," Kira said, and there were tears streaming down her face. "I will not watch you die for me." "Better I die than you become what they fear," Ronan said. "I am already what they fear," Kira said. "I have spent 3 years hiding, suppressing, running from my own power because I was terrified of becoming a monster." She looked at the assembled wolves, at the hundreds of faces filled with terror and hatred. "But you know what I realized," she said. "Monsters are not made by power. They are made by choices. Her power flared brighter, and the entire arena shook. Cracks spread through the ancient stone like a spider web. I could kill you all right now, Kira said, her voice breaking. Every single one of you, with just a thought. I could tear this pack apart, could burn your homes and scatter your bones across the mountains. The wolves whimpered, pressing back against the arena walls. Even Thorn had shifted back to human, naked and trembling before her. But I will not, Kira said. Because that is not who I am. She turned to Ronan, and the terrible light in her eyes softened. You taught me that, she said. You showed me that I could be more than my worst fears. Ronan tried to take a step toward her and collapsed. The blood loss was too much. Kira was at his side instantly, her hands glowing with white fire as she pressed them to his wounds. What are you doing? Marcus shouted, starting forward. Saving him, Kira said. The light flowed from her hands into Ronan's body, and the wounds began to close. Flesh knit back together, bones straightened, blood stopped flowing. It was healing beyond anything wolf regeneration could accomplish, a miracle written in light and will. But the effort was costing her. Kira's body began to tremble, her skin growing pale as she poured her life force into Ronan. Stop, Ronan gasped, grabbing her wrist. You will kill yourself. Then we die together, Kira said simply. No, Ronan said with the last of his strength. Live. Not without you, Kira said. The bond between them flared golden, visible to everyone watching as a cord of pure light connecting their hearts. And then something extraordinary happened. The bond began to pulse, sending energy back to Kira even as she gave it to Ronan. A circuit formed, power flowing between them in an endless loop. Her Luminae energy fed his wolf strength, and his wolf strength anchored her light. Two halves of a whole, balancing each other perfectly. The wounds healed completely. Ronan's breathing steadied, and Kira's light settled into a gentle glow instead of the terrible blaze. They stood together, still holding each other, and turned to face the pack. This is what the mate bond can be, Ronan said, his voice ringing out across the suddenly silent arena. Not a weakness, not a compromise, but a strength greater than either of us could achieve alone. She is Luminae, someone shouted from the crowd. Yes, Ronan agreed. And I am Wolf. And together we are something new. He looked at Thorn, who stood frozen in shock. Do you yield? Ronan asked. Thorn stared at him, at Kira, at the golden bond that still shimmered between them. Slowly he dropped to one knee. I yield, he said hoarsely. You have won, Alpha King. Ronan nodded and turned to address the entire pack. The High Council has declared war on us, he said. They demand we surrender Kira to be stripped of her power, or face destruction. I say we face destruction. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I say we stand together and show them that we are not slaves to their fear, Ronan continued. That we choose our own path, make our own laws, accept our own mates regardless of what species they belong to. This is treason, someone called out. This is freedom, Ronan countered. And I know it will be hard, I know many of you are afraid, but I also know that we are stronger than they think. He pulled Kira close to his side. Look at her, he commanded. Really look. See past your fear to the truth. She could have killed us all 100 times over, but she chose mercy every single time. She spent 3 years living among us, serving us, suffering in silence because she wanted to belong, not destroy. His voice grew stronger, filled with the conviction of a king who had found his purpose. That is not the action of a monster, he said. That is the action of someone braver and stronger than any of us. Kira was crying openly now, overwhelmed by his words and the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. "I do not expect you to trust her immediately," Ronan said. "I do not expect you to forget centuries of hatred overnight. But I do expect you to give her a chance to prove herself. And I expect you to stand with me when the High Council comes for us. Because they will come, make no mistake. And when they do, we will need every warrior, every ally, every ounce of courage we can muster." Marcus stepped forward into the arena. "I stand with the Alpha King," he declared. "And with his mate, whatever she may be." One by one, other wolves came forward. Not all of them, but more than Ronan had dared hope. Young warriors and old soldiers, mothers with children and scouts from the borderlands. They formed a circle around Ronan and Kira, a living shield of fur and fang and loyalty. Even some of Thorn's supporters joined them, swayed by Ronan's words or simply unwilling to stand against their king. Thorn himself remained kneeling, his head bowed. "What will you do with me?" he asked. Ronan considered for a long moment. "You challenged me honorably," he said finally. "And you yielded when you were beaten. I will not punish you for that." He extended his hand. "But I need to know when the High Council comes. Will you stand with us or against us?" Thorn looked at the offered hand, then at Kira. "I still think you are dangerous," he said to her. "I still think this could end in disaster. But—" He took Ronan's hand and let himself be pulled to his feet. "You are my Alpha King, and I swore an oath to follow you. Even into rebellion." Ronan clasped his arm, the gesture of one warrior acknowledging another. "Thank you, old wolf," he said. Morrigan descended into the arena, her face unreadable. "The challenge is concluded," she announced. "Alpha King Ronan has won, and his rule is confirmed." She turned to the crowd. "The council will convene to discuss our response to the High Council's ultimatum. But for now, tend to your wounded and prepare for what is to come." The crowd began to disperse, wolves talking in hushed, urgent voices. Some looked hopeful, others terrified, but all of them now knew that change was coming whether they wanted it or not. Kira sagged against Ronan, her strength finally giving out. He caught her easily, cradling her against his chest. "You saved me," he said softly. "You saved all of us," Kira corrected. "I just showed them what I am." "You showed them who you are," Ronan said. "And that made all the difference." He carried her from the arena as the sun began its descent toward the western mountains. Behind them, Marcus organized the defense preparations, already planning for the siege that would surely come. The council convened in emergency session, drafting messages to potential allies among the other packs. And high in her tower, the figure who had orchestrated so much chaos watched with narrowed eyes. This was not how it was supposed to go. The girl was supposed to be dead or exiled by now. The pack was supposed to be in ruins, easy pickings for the High Council's forces. Instead, they were united, strengthened by the very thing that should have destroyed them. But it was not over yet. The figure had one more card to play, one final piece of information that would change everything. Soon, very soon, Kira would learn the truth about what she really was. And when she did, even the Alpha King's love might not be enough to save her from herself. 3 days later, the High Council's army arrived. 500 wolves from a dozen different packs, all bearing the silver and gold banner of the council. They surrounded the northern pack's territory, cutting off all escape routes. Aldrich stood at their head, flanked by 3 other counselors and enough firepower to level a city. "Send out the Luminae," he called, his voice magically amplified. "Or we will come in and take her." Ronan stood on the walls of his compound, Kira at his side. The entire northern pack was armed and ready behind them, a mere 200 wolves against 500. The odds were impossible. They were going to die. And yet, not a single wolf had fled. "You want her," Ronan shouted back. "Come and take her." Aldrich smiled. "So be it." He raised his hand, and the army surged forward. The battle was chaos from the first moment. Wolves crashed against wolves, the air filled with snarls and screams and the wet sound of flesh tearing. Ronan fought like a demon, his massive black wolf cutting through enemy after enemy. Beside him, Marcus and Thorn formed a deadly pair, watching each other's backs. And above it all, Kira stood on the wall, her power held carefully in check. She wanted to help, wanted to use her abilities to turn the tide, but she knew that doing so would only prove the High Council right, that she was too dangerous to live. Then she saw it. A group of elite warriors had broken through the line and were heading straight for the nursery where the pack's children sheltered. Without thinking, Kira jumped from the wall. She landed in front of the nursery doors, her body blazing with white light. "No further," she said. The warriors laughed. "One little girl against 6 trained killers," their leader said. "This will be easy." They were wrong. Kira moved like lightning, her power allowing her to see their attacks before they happened. She dodged the first warrior's lunge and touched his chest lightly. He flew backward with enough force to crater the wall he hit. The second and third attacked together, but she simply raised her hand and they froze in midair, held by invisible threads of energy. The remaining 3 hesitated. "I do not want to kill you," Kira said, and there was genuine pleading in her voice. "Please just leave." "We have our orders," the leader said. And he attacked. Kira caught his claws with her bare hands, and white fire raced up his arms. He screamed and tried to pull away, but she held him fast. "I am not your enemy," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Why can you not see that?" The warrior looked into her eyes, and for just a moment, his expression shifted from hatred to confusion. "What are you?" he whispered. "I am Kira," she said simply. "And I am trying very hard not to become what you fear." She released him and he stumbled backward. Behind her, the nursery doors opened and mothers emerged with their children, ready to defend their young with tooth and claw if needed. They saw Kira standing between their babies and the enemy warriors. They saw the bodies of wolves she had defeated but not killed. They saw her crying as she fought, hating every moment of violence. And something shifted in their hearts. "Protect the Luminae," one of the mothers shouted. "She is defending our children." The mothers charged past Kira, throwing themselves at the remaining warriors with a ferocity that drove them back. Kira stood frozen in shock as these wolves who had feared her, hated her, now fought to defend her. On the main battlefield, the tide was turning. Not in the northern pack's favor. There were simply too many enemies, but they were fighting with a desperation and unity that gave the High Council's forces pause. Then Aldrich himself entered the fray. He was massive in his wolf form, nearly 400 pounds of silver and white fur. He cut through the northern pack's defenders like they were nothing, heading straight for Ronan. They collided with earth-shaking force, 2 alphas fighting for dominance. But Aldrich was fresh and Ronan was exhausted from days of stress and the earlier challenge. Within minutes, Aldrich had him pinned. "You should have surrendered the abomination," Aldrich said. "Now you die." His jaws opened wide, ready to tear out Ronan's throat. Kira felt it through the bond, felt Ronan's life hanging by a thread. And she made a choice. She stopped holding back. Her power exploded outward in a wave that knocked every fighting wolf to the ground. The sky darkened as energy swirled around her like a tornado. She rose into the air, her body incandescent with light so bright it hurt to look at directly. "Enough," she said, and her voice was thunder. Every wolf on the battlefield froze, unable to move under the weight of her power. Aldrich released Ronan and backed away, his eyes wide with terror. "Now you see," he gasped. "Now you see what she truly is." "Yes," Kira said, descending until she stood before him. "Now you see." She placed her hand on Aldrich's head, and he whimpered. "I could kill you," she said softly. "I could kill everyone here who came to destroy me and the pack that gave me shelter. It would be so easy." Her power pulsed, and Aldrich felt his bones begin to crack under the pressure. "But I will not," Kira said. "Because I choose mercy." She released him, and he collapsed to the ground, gasping. "I choose to be better than my worst impulses," she continued, addressing the entire army. "I choose to show you that Luminae and wolves can coexist. That power does not equal evil. That different does not mean dangerous." She looked at each wolf in turn, and one by one they lowered their eyes, unable to hold her gaze. "Go back to the High Council," she said. "Tell them that the Northern Pack will not surrender. Tell them that we are willing to fight for the right to choose our own destiny. But also tell them," and here her voice softened, "that we are willing to talk, to negotiate, to find a path forward that does not require war." She turned to Ronan, who had staggered to his feet. "If they will accept us," she said. Aldrich pulled himself up, his body shaking. "The council will never accept you," he said. "Then the council is wrong," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Elder Kasha stepping forward. She had shifted to human form and stood naked and unashamed before the army. "I have watched this girl for 3 days," Kasha said. "I have seen her show restraint when she could have unleashed destruction. I have seen her defend our children, heal our wounded, and cry for every life lost in this pointless battle." She looked at Aldrich. "If that is what a monster looks like, then I question what we have become." Other wolves began to murmur agreement. Slowly, carefully, some of the High Council's forces began to lower their weapons. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to matter. Aldrich looked around at his fracturing army and snarled in frustration. "This is not over," he said. "The High Council will hear of this treason." "Let them hear," Kasha said calmly. "Let them hear that there are wolves who still believe in mercy over fear." Aldrich shifted and retreated, calling his most loyal followers to him. They withdrew from the battlefield, leaving behind nearly half their force. Wolves who had come to destroy but now stood uncertain, questioning everything they had been taught. Kira's power finally faded, and she collapsed. Ronan caught her before she hit the ground, holding her close. "You did it," he whispered. "You showed them." "I showed them what I can do," Kira said weakly. "But will it be enough?" She looked at the wolves surrounding them, Northern Pack and High Council forces alike, all staring at her with a mixture of awe and fear. "I do not know if I can be what you need me to be," she said to Ronan. "I do not know if I am strong enough." "You are the strongest person I have ever met," Ronan said. "And you are not alone anymore." He looked at his pack, at Marcus and Thorn and Kasha and all the others who had stood with them. "We are all in this together now," he said. "Wolf and Luminae, bound by choice rather than forced by circumstance." Marcus stepped forward and, to everyone's shock, knelt before Kira. "I was wrong about you," he said simply. "I let fear cloud my judgment. Forgive me, my queen." One by one, other wolves knelt. Not just the northern pack, but some of the High Council's former soldiers too. Pledging loyalty not to a king or a council, but to an idea. The idea that they could be better than their ancestors. That they could choose peace over war. That they could embrace what was different instead of destroying it. Kira wept, overwhelmed by the moment. Ronan helped her to her feet and held her steady as she faced her new pack. "I promise you," she said, her voice shaking but sincere. "I will spend every day proving that your faith in me is not misplaced. I will use my power to protect, not destroy. I will be the bridge between our peoples, not the weapon that tears us apart." She looked at Ronan, at the mate bond that still glowed golden between them. "And I will love your king with everything I am for as long as I live." The assembled wolves howled, a sound of triumph and grief and hope all mixed together. The sun was setting, painting the battlefield in shades of red and gold. Bodies would need to be tended, wounds would need to be healed, and the long work of rebuilding would begin tomorrow. But for now, in this moment they had won. Not through violence or destruction, but through the simple act of choosing compassion over fear. Ronan pulled Kira close and kissed her, not caring who watched. She melted into him, and for the first time in 3 years she felt truly safe, truly home. "What happens now?" she asked when they finally broke apart. "Now we build something new," Ronan said. "A pact that accepts all who choose to stand with us, regardless of what they are. A kingdom founded on choice and hope instead of fear and hatred." He smiled at her, and it was full of love and promise. "Now we live, Kira. We live, and we show them all that the moon knew exactly what she was doing when she bound us together." Far to the north, in the High Council's stronghold, Aldrich delivered his report to the assembled councillors. They listened in grim silence as he described Kira's power, the Northern Pack's defiance, and the fracturing of their own forces. "This cannot stand," one of the councillors said. "We must gather a larger army, crush this rebellion before it spreads." But the eldest councillor, a white-haired wolf who had lived through the Great War itself, raised a weathered hand. "Or," he said slowly, "we could consider that perhaps the world has changed. Perhaps it is time we changed with it." The chamber erupted in argument, but the seed had been planted. And in the hearts of wolves across the continent, a question began to take root. What if the old ways were wrong? What if there was another path? Back in the northern pack, as the moon rose full and bright over the compound, Ronan and Kira stood together on the highest tower. Behind them, their pack worked to heal and rebuild. Before them, the future stretched out uncertain and dangerous but full of possibility. "Do you think we can truly change things?" Kira asked, leaning against Ronan's solid strength. "I think we already have," Ronan said. "Everything that comes after is just details." Kira laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "Just details," she repeated. "Like overthrowing the High Council and rewriting centuries of law." "Exactly," Ronan said with a grin. "Simple." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. "Thank you," Kira said finally. "For what?" "For seeing me," she said. "Not the monster everyone feared, not the weapon they wanted to destroy, but just me. Kira, who scrubs floors and hoards wolfsbane and tries so hard to be good even when the world tells her she is evil." Ronan turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You were never evil," he said firmly. "You were never a monster. You were always just a girl trying to survive in a world that did not understand you." "And now?" Kira asked. "Now you are my mate, my queen, and my greatest ally," Ronan said. "Now you are the hope that will carry us into a better future." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Now you are home. Kira closed her eyes and let herself believe it. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found a place where she belonged. A place where power and compassion could coexist. A place where love was stronger than fear. And as the moon shone down on the Alpha King and his Luminae Queen, the beginning of a new era began. Not with fire and destruction, as the old prophecies had predicted, but with hope and healing and the radical choice to believe that different could mean beautiful instead of dangerous. Years later, when wolves told the story of the Alpha King who chose love over law, who risked everything for a girl the world had condemned, they would speak of this moment. The moment when everything changed. When mercy proved stronger than violence. When a kitchen servant became a queen and showed an entire species that they could be better than their worst fears. And they would end the tale the same way every time, with the words that Kira herself had spoken on that blood-soaked battlefield. The words that became the foundation of a new world. I choose to be better than my worst impulses, and I choose to show you that power does not equal evil, that different does not mean dangerous, and that even in the darkest moments, there is always a choice to be made between fear and love. I choose love. Always I choose love. And in choosing love, she saved them all.